needle drops. It's time. That was douchey. It's time to do an album review. Miami Horror, Illumination. Miami Horror is an electro project from Australia and was started by a Mr. Benjamin Plant. And what caught me about this LP is just its really interesting mix of influences. There are some aspects to it that would make it fit right in on the dance floor, maybe even appeal to these guys. But it doesn't really use a lot of the harsh sounds, the buzzing bass, and just the hard-hitting beats that a lot of house music uses. If you're on the lookout for another cross, this is not it. So you've got all of these house and electro sounds throughout this LP, but also there's quite a bit of disco influence on here too. People like ABBA totally have an imprint on this album. Some Bee Gees flavored falsetto vocals, you got bumpin' bass, and a lot of drum beats that emphasize the hi-hat, a lot of subtlety. And there was some decent songwriting going on here too. It's not just one lyric repeating over one beat and just kind of going on into oblivion, because people aren't really paying attention, they're either drinking, dancing, or screwing. Considering that, and all of the nicer sounds, this thing doesn't feel too out of place either on a set of headphones. And it's quite possibly one of the finest mixes of electro and disco I've ever come across. Because Miami Horror works in the 4/4 beats, the fluttering electronic blips and bloops, and the flange building up right before to when the beat kicks in. It's kind of hard to tell where all the disco stuff starts and all the electro stuff ends. It's kind of seamlessly pulled together. It's like sped up CFCF. It's like Crystal Castles but more radio friendly. It's like chill wave but with less nostalgia. And speaking of chill wave, Alan Palomo of Neon Indian actually guests on one of the tracks here, Holidays. However you slice or compare this LP, it all adds up to some really essential dance tracks for 2010. I guess if we're going to come down on some major gripes, for a dance record, it's kind of varied, but in general, this is not really a varied album. Almost every track just ends up in a similar dance beat, but Miami Horror works to at least introduce all of these tracks differently so that you get at least a little bit of a sensation of a difference between all of the tracks, whether it be the acoustic opener on Moon Theory or the narrated female vocals on ECHOPLEX. It does get a little cheesy here and there, and it's not the most bold statement in dance music. It's not anything that labels like Ed Banger or DFA Records haven't brought us before, and they could have done a lot more to change things up, but I think that would have taken away to how much of a dance record this really is. Here and there, the sounds on this LP do get a little generic, but it's very nice to hear dance music of this style, not just in all of these loosely placed MP3s uploaded and downloaded throughout the blogosphere, but instead on this one easy to listen to album. This is a really popular sound in electro right now, and I think what Miami Horror has done is put together an album of songs that are very definitive when it comes to this style. I'm kind of feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this thing. It's okay, it's good as a whole, but I'm most likely going to gravitate just toward that Neon Indian collaboration and the singles, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But what do you guys think of this thing? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And why? Anthony Fantano, Miami Horror, Illumination, forever.